Hello everybody, it's Lucy Wolf here, sleep consultant and author of The Baby Sleep Solution and all about the Baby Sleep Solution as well. I hope you're really well today. Just wanted to talk to you today about a couple of reasons why you might be experiencing some of the sleep challenges that you're experiencing. And I guess, unfortunately, a large percentage of parents report various sleep challenges that range from resistance to bedtime or nap time, frequent nighttime wakening, early rising, short naps, long wake periods overnight. Some of you call that the split night. And I guess the sleep is a natural process. I've talked about this recently on my grid, but there are so many force factors that influence your children's sleeping pattern. And I thought today, if I just started the week off explaining a few of those to you, might just help you start to make some keen decisions that might help you work through the challenges that you're currently experiencing. The first one I'm going to propose to you is that sometimes bedtime is attempted when your baby is already overtired, which results in a chemical response of cortisol and adrenaline to the system that just has two main jobs. The first one is that it makes it hard for the body to achieve sleep, which leads to the fight that you might report. And the second one is that it makes it really difficult for the body to stay asleep, which often results in the really frequent nighttime activity, like waking every 40 minutes or hourly, and then waking for those long periods of time, and also the early rising. So actually, the overtiredness level at bedtime does contribute hugely to a lot of the challenges that parents experience. It's a little bit like a rolling cycle. So if they're overtired at bedtime, then they start to wake a lot. They're overtired starting the day, then they resist their daytime sleep. The daytime sleep is not as long as maybe it needs to be, and then this continues the overdrive. So very often I'll always bring forward bedtime. So I use my bedtime number line, which helps you aim for in bed asleep for 7 until you can establish what the natural bedtime is meant to be. And also what I would propose to you is that if you're beginning to work on your sleep and for some reason the naps are over too early based on your child's age range, then don't be afraid of an early bedtime of 6 p.m. to stop the cycle of overtiredness that is there. It's not a long-term strategy, but it's a great little short-term one, which leads me to the daytime sleep dynamic, because of course that has a huge influence on your child's sleep experience. And unfortunately, if they don't get enough daytime sleep, or the dynamic between the sleeps is too big, or the gap before bedtime is too big, unfortunately parents seem to continue to struggle with a lot of what I've already mentioned. I guess I try not to put too much emphasis on the amount of sleep a child might get, because I feel that each child is so different in their need. But of course I'll always aim for close to what's recommended. And as your child is if they're older than 6 months, then I typically recommend that we're ultimately hoping for one nap of at least 40 minutes and one nap of at least an hour plus in duration. And look, it takes a lot of time for that to emerge, which is why I guess I don't put a lot of emphasis on the amount they're getting, but I do put a lot of emphasis on the dynamic between the sleeps. And I use my wake profile to begin with, and then I convert that to the clock-based timings as your child's sleep improves. But I suppose specific attention to the end of the day is suggested so that you observe your child's nap gap dynamic. And for those of you who've been here for a while, you'll recall that typically suggest that we don't have more than 2 hours between the last nap and bedtime in the age range between 4 and 8 months. And then between 8 months and 18 months, we tend to try to observe 3 to 4 hours. And then from 18 months plus, when there's just one nap a day, we're looking at 4 to 5 hours of a wake profile before bedtime. And again, when your child is routinely struggling with any aspect of their sleep, I'll always go on the lower end of the scale there, because that gap does make a difference. A nap imbalance has a massive impact on your child's sleep performance as well. So lots of you will say, look, I have enough sleep in the day, but they still wake. And again, getting wake profiles right, getting enough to sleep during the day isn't on its own necessarily enough to support a nighttime sleep tendency. Obviously it will help some bit, but it doesn't necessarily bring you completely over the line. A nap imbalance to me is when maybe nap 1 is long and strong and nap 2 is less than. which means that your child may get enough sleep on paper, but they're still overtired come bedtime as a result of the balance between the sleeps. And of course, that's why I do put an emphasis then not just on promoting the second nap. And this takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work on your part. And of course, that's where I introduce all of the adjustments that come in both of the books to help you create that plan. Of course, other undermining influences for your children's sleep are, not getting enough to eat and drink throughout the course of the day, or possibly having an over-reliance on milk in the overnight, which of course impacts the appetite during the day. And again, there's a little balancing act that needs to be done where that's concerned, where we try to undo that disproportionate cycle, again with a night weaning exercise if that's appropriate for your child's age and stage, or at least a regulation of the intake overnight to continue to promote the appetite for milk and food during the day. And again, I suppose in terms of creating a feeding and sleeping balance to the day, I'm always interested in having your first feed and breakfast on wake up, and then your lunch in between nap 1 and nap 2, and then your dinner around 5, and that the dinner itself, once established, is the meat, protein and carb based meal. And of course, all my recommendations are in both of the books. I think it's really important, and it's so lovely to see the sun over this weekend, that we are getting out and about. And it's important that we expose our children to bright and natural light. An hour a day is the recommendation, but also that they're getting what I describe as being age-appropriate exercise. So as soon as they start moving, you enable that. You have them out of their high chairs, you have them out of the buggies and the car seats, and they're allowed to roam on the floor. Maybe you look at obstacle courses and things like that in the room, so that they can really get good at the movement that's coming with their age profile, and that you're really initiating that for them. I suppose it's important that I might mention that sometimes sleep is affected by too much exposure to TV or electronic media, and it is suggested even, just telly on in the background can have an impact to some children. So again, look, the weather is getting better, and of course we maybe will be able to rely less on the gadgets than we have been, and of course continue to tie that in with the outside activity that we'll be promoting all of the time. I think it's important as well to look at your sleep environment, warm enough, no distractions. I think it's really important that as your child is getting bigger, that they move into a conventional cot, and you leave behind, the sleepy heads, the positioners, that they're in the cot, standard size cot that's fit for their age profile, and that they have room to move and get comfortable themselves, and that we then help them to establish that skill set if that skill isn't there already. So again, just finally, one of the biggest undermining influences when you put all that together is that your child doesn't have a sleep ability that is big enough or strong enough to support their overnight tendency. And this comes down to how you get them to sleep. So, if you're overly involved, and in some cases, even if you're just mildly involved, that then becomes a barrier to what they need from you overnight. So just briefly, if you are feeding them sleep, rocking them sleep, rolling them sleep, getting them sleep with your support or high levels of your support, and that can even just be patting the bottom, then sometimes you're more vulnerable to that overnight waking for more of the same. And then some of you, of course, will report that they're totally able to put themselves to sleep at bedtime, but the night wakings continue, which often indicates that the night itself needs to be treated. And you'll know, if you've got my second book, that I split your sleep up into segments. So sleep segment 1 is bedtime, sleep segment 2 is overnight, 3 is early morning, and then 4 and 5 are to do with daytime sleep. And it's important that when we're helping our children sleep better, deeper, longer and more, that we are addressing each segment in isolation. And of course, lots of you will say that doing your best to get the naps longer, but they're not coming. And of course, sometimes we need the night to come to promote the daytime sleep. So it is very much an element of all of the pieces of the puzzles being nurtured and promoted to the level that they need in order to support your efforts. So look, I hope that's helpful this morning. Like I said, you can find all the information in both of my books, and of course information to my website, and you can choose to work with me directly by emailing lucy@sleepmatters.ie. I hope you have a lovely day, and I look forward to seeing you here again soon.